Assalamualaikum. I am Muhammad Irfan Islam Ratun. Our poster explores different aspects of how Buddhism became at first pan-Asiatic religion. My part focuses on Ashoka and early spirit of Buddhism. Uh, Ashoka, the Mauryan emperor of the 3rd century BCE, played a crucial role in transforming Buddhism from a small Indian sect into an international religion. In my first point, I want to tell about Kalinga War and conversion. One of the most important turning points was the Kalinga War. For around 261 BCE, historical sources tell us that more than 100,000 people died. Unlike the kings, Ashoka did not celebrate victory. Instead, he felt remorse. He gave up warfare and turned to Buddhism, embracing compassion and ahimsa or non-violence. As Ashoka himself declared in his edicts, all men are my children. What I desire for my children, I desire for all men. This shows the deep personal change that shaped his future politics. Now I want to tell about my second point, that royal royal patronage. After his conversion, Ashoka became the greatest royal patron of Buddhism. He sponsored the construction monasteries and stupas, which became center of worship, education, and community life. For example, the Shanchi stupa is still standing today as proof of legacy. By supporting this religious institution, Ashoka made Buddhism visible in daily life and gave monks the resources to spare their teaching. As historian Thapar said, Ashoka Dhamma was not a sectarian doctrine but also a moral law for all people. This inclusiveness made Buddhism uh, appealing to both common people and elites. In my third point, I mentioned edicts and communication. Ashoka also used a unique way to communicate his idea. He had his message carved on rocks and stone pillars across his empire, which we call edicts of Ashoka. What makes them special is what they were written in local languages so even ordinary people could understand. This is Edicts promoted respect for elders, kindness to animals, tolerance for all religions, and social welfare. In today's words, we could call them the earliest from public service announcement or even public relations. They show how powerful communication can be, spreading moral values. In my fourth point, last point, I mentioned the missionary work. Finally, Ashoka extended Buddhism beyond India. He sent missionaries to places like Central Asia, and even as far as Mediterranean world. Most famously, his son Mahinda and daughter Sanghamita uh, carried Buddhism to Sri Lanka, where it became deeply rooted. From Sri Lanka, Buddhism spread further into Myanmar, Thailand, and other South Asia countries. This missionary work laid the foundation of Buddhism, later expansion along the Silk Road to China. I want to share the impact and legacy because of Ashoka's effort. Buddhism grew stronger within India and expanded for beyond it. Later, Asian rulers admired his model of moral kingship and used Buddhism for legitimacy. As historian uh, Gokhale put it, under Ashoka, Buddhism transformed from a religional sect into a world religion. His story highlights the close link between politics and religion and how a ruler choice can shape uh, cultural history for centuries. Lastly, I want to conclude Ashoka's role in the early spread of Buddhism. Buddhism cannot be overstated. From his personal transformation after the Kalinga War to his patronage of monasteries, his edicts promoting morality, and his decision to send missionaries abroad, Ashoka made sure Buddhism would not remain only in India but would become the first Asiatic religion. Its legacy reminds us that leadership guided by compa- compassion and moral responsibility can truly change the course of history. Uh, Thank you. This is was my part. Then I want to invite my second person of my group. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Today I will talk about how Buddhist philosophical ideas such as mindfulness, compassion, and impermanence have shaped Asian thought and ethics. My thesis is that these ideas not only influence traditional societies in Asia but also continue to play a transformative role in modern education, business ethics, and mental health across the world. Buddhism began in India around the 5th century. Before Christ and spread across Asia from Sri Lanka to China, Korea, and Japan. As it traveled, it brought with it ideas of ethical living, harmony, and mental discipline. For example, Buddhist monasteries were not only spiritual centers but also educational ones when mindfulness and compassion were taught alongside reading one logic. These ideas laid the foundation for Asian ethical traditions and valued harmony in family, community, and governance. Um, Mindfulness and mental health, as shown in Gordon and Griffiths, explain mindfulness and cultivated in Buddhist practice has become a bridge between traditional Asian philosophy and contemporary approaches to mental health. This shows how an ancient practice has entered modern psychology, helping people manage anxiety, depression, and stress. What started as a spiritual discipline is now a scientific tool. Impermanence and acceptance. Philosopher Damien Cohen writes that the doctrine of impermanence encourages an attitude of non-attachment that eases human suffering. That this means that by accepting change as a natural part of life, individuals and societies can reduce conflict and live more peacefully. For example, Japanese Zen culture turned into an art of simplicity and acceptance. Compassion in ethics. According to Harvey 2000, compassion is the central ethical teaching of Buddhism, shaping both personal conduct and social responsibility. This shaped Asian family values and even business practices, where the welfare of other was prioritized alongside profit. In countries like Korea, Confucian and Buddhist ethics worked together to build strong communal bonds. Importance these Importance for today, these contributions are not just historical. In education, mindfulness is used in classroom in India and beyond. In business, compassion based leadership in gaining attention in Asia. In healthcare, Buddhist inspired therapies are widely practiced. The importance lies in their ability to harmonize multi-ethnic societies, promoting tolerance, empathy, and ethical responsibility. Here comes for critical analysis. However, this is a challenge that Buddhist practices like mindfulness and adopted in the West. They are often separated from their ethical foundation and turned into productivity tools. Critics are this reduces a profound philosophy to just stress relief. On the other hand, this is also shows the adaptability of these ideas. They can fit into new cultural context. The key question is, can we preserve their ethical depth while applying them in modern life? My view is that while mindfulness and compassion are useful in psychologically and business, they must remain tied to their ethical roots to avoid becoming shallow. To conclude, the philosophical contributions of Buddhism, mindfulness, impermanence, and compassion have shaped Asian thought for centuries and continue to guide modern ethics. Comparatively, just as Western thought draws heavily from Greek philosophy, Asian thought has been deeply shaped by Buddhist ideas. Both traditions teach us about human flourishing, one through reason and logic, the other through compassion and mindfulness. Together they remain as the philosophy is not only about knowledge but also how we live, how we treat others, and how we build more harmonious world. Thank you so much.
Greetings. I'm Fahmida Azad Onunna. Today I'm going to present on the topic of Buddhism and the cultures of Asia, specifically focusing on its culture, economic, socio-political, and religious significance as the first Pan-Asian religion. In this presentation, I will discuss the fourth part of the topic, socio-political influence on governance and social structures. This section examines how Buddhist kings in countries like Cambodia utilized Buddhism to unite their people and establish fair laws grounded in non-violence and equality. The influence of Buddhism also impacted social classes by promoting monkhood as a path to represent, thereby reducing some inequalities. Additionally, I will provide examples such as how emperors in China supported Buddhism to strengthen their rule and maintain peace. Now, I would like to talk about the righteous ruler, the concept of Dhamma a key concept that facilitated Buddhism's political integration was the idea of the Dhamaraja or righteous ruler. This wasn't just a title, it was a job description infused with Buddhist expectations. In classical in classical thinking, the nation was held together by two interdependent wills, the clergy or Sangha and the Dharmaraja. Kings were expected to govern based on core Buddhist principles: nonviolence, liberty, integrity, and committed to equality. This created a moral contract between the ruler and the ruled. Governance wasn't just about power, it was about creating social harmony and happiness. This framework interestingly aligned not only with Buddhist law but also with core democratic ideas of public welfare and human rights protection. Now I will tell a case study about unifying Cambodia. Now, where is this model clearer than in Cambodia's history? Cambodian kings utilized Buddhism as a major institution to unify different political and social groups. A powerful quote from Buddhist monk encapsulates this vision. The suffering of Cambodia has been profound. From this suffering arises great compassion. A peaceful heart makes a peaceful person, a peaceful community, peaceful nation, and makes a beautiful, peaceful world. This philosophy was operationalized through the symbolic relationship between the righteous king and the monastic community. The Sangha provided moral legitimacy to the state, while the king offered protection and support to the Sangha, creating powerful engine for social cohesion. Then the rule of monastic community Sangha. The monks or the Sangha were absolutely integral to this social structure. They were far more than religious leaders. They were community leaders with significant grassroots influence. They lived among the common people, legitimizing popular action and often acting as mediators between the populace and the ruling authorities. Their presence injected a profound moral seriousness into public life, fostering an atmosphere that encouraged debate and peaceful conflict resolution. By reasserting the moral foundations of governance, the monks were essential pillars of social peace. The Buddha has taught that there is no greater happiness than peace. The final goal of a Buddhist is the peaceful state of nirvana, and the means to arrive there must also be peaceful. Now I will talk about Buddhism as a social law. Beyond high politics, Buddhism also had a profound impact on social structures. Monastic life offered a unique avenue for social mobility. Any individual, regardless of their birth or background, could gain respect, spiritual merit, and even political influence by joining a monastery. monastery. This created the potential for lessening class divisions, as fame and status could be earned through spiritual dedication rather than inherited family standing. While society still maintained inequalities, the monastic path provided a powerful counter narrative to rigid class hierarchies and offered opportunities for a better future. Again, a case study about Imperial China's adoption. This model was replicated across Asia. In China, emperors strategically supported Buddhism to strengthen their rule and promote stability during difficult times. The government backed Buddhism. Monasteries and monks become part of the government and legal apparatus, with laws created to protect their status. Emperors used to be Buddhist ideas like non-violence and compassion to connect with the people and present themselves as moral leaders. During the Tang Dynasty, state protection of monasteries helped keep society united and ordered. However, this relationship was sometimes fraught, and Buddhism also faced periods of persecution when it came into political or cultural conflict with the state. In conclusion, Buddhism's spread as the first pan-Asiatic religion was deeply tied to its socio-political utility. It provided rulers with a moral framework for leadership, like the Dhamma a unifying ideology to consolidate diverse population, and an institutional structure like Shangha to promote social harmony. For the people, it offered ethical governance, a path for social mobility, and champions for justice. The principles of non-violence and compassion were not just spiritual goals but practical tools for conflict resolution and building community bonds. Ultimately, Buddhism helped create systems of government that prioritize human welfare and sought to make societies more equal and peaceful, leaving an indelible mark on the society and culture of Asia. A quote says, in conflict situations, nonviolence serves as both the desired outcome and the means to achieve it. Thank you. That was from my side.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Tahmid Rahman. I'll be talking about the modern relevance and challenges of Buddhism in today's Asia. Buddhism is one of the world's oldest spiritual traditions and first religion to spread widely across Asia. From India, it reached many countries and shaped their culture, values, and way of life. What makes Buddhism special is how it continues to change with time and still stay meaningful in our fast moving world. Let's start with tourism and pilgrimage. Visiting sacred sites has always been a big part of Buddhist practice. Today, it also supports local economies. Places like Lumbini in Nepal, Bodhgaya in India, and Kandy in Sri Lanka attract vis- millions of visitors every year. This helps keep traditions alive and creates jobs for local people. But there's also a problem. Sometimes spiritual journeys can become too commercial, turning into just another form of tourism. Buddhism is also strongly connected to peace movements. The values of non-violence and compassion have guided Buddhists for centuries. Leaders like Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh used to these teachings to promote peace, human rights, and forgiveness. This shows how old wisdom can still solve modern problems like war and inequality. At the same time, we can't ignore that in some places Buddhism has been misused in politics, especially in nationalist movements in Myanmar and Sri Lanka. Another important area is the environment. Buddhism teaches that all life is connected. This means humans and nature are part of one system. Bhutan is a good example because its policies focus on conservation and happiness inspired by Buddhist values. This shows how Buddhist idea can guide us in protecting the environment even though globalization and climate change remain big challenges. Uh, uh, Buddhism has also become important for mental health in modern cities. Practices like meditation and mindfulness are now used by schools, hospitals, and companies to reduce stress and improve focus. Uh, Many people in cities like Tokyo, Seoul, and Singapore benefit from these practices. But critics warn that when mindfulness is turned into a product or a quick fix, sometimes calls make mindfulness, it loses its deeper meaning. Technology has also changed Buddhism. Online meditations, online meditation groups, virtual teachings, and global Vesak celebrations connect Buddhists all over the world. This shows how Buddhism can unite people even in the digital age. But again, politics plays a role. Because some governments use Buddhism to promote nationalism, which can harm minority groups. So, what does all of this mean? Buddhism is still very relevant today. It helps people and societies face issues like climate change, inequality, health struggles, and the need for peace. But it also faces new challenges from commercialization, commercialization, modernization, and political misuse. To summarize my whole part, uh, pilgrimage keeps traditions alive and support local economics. Uh, Peace movements show how compassion can solve modern conflicts. Environmental ethics link ancient wisdom with sustainability, Mindfulness supports mental health, though sometimes it is misused. Digital technology is giving Buddhism new ways to connect people. So, Buddhism's greatest strength is about its ability to rooted in ancient traditions. It continues to grow and change to meet modern needs. That is why it is still a unifying force in Asia and also a global resource for addressing today's biggest challenges. That's all from my part. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. This is the poster of our final assessment in the HUM101 course. 4 out of 8 members from group 15 have prepared this poster for the presentation topic Buddhism and the Cultures of Asia, Culture, Economic, Socio-Political and Religious Significance of the Buddhism becoming the first pan-Asiatic religion. With the 4 members, we'll cover these subtopics: economic impacts, cultural exchange and adaptations, influence on art, architecture, and literature, and finally religious significance. I am Arnav Bhattacharya from group 15. Today I am going to talk about economic impact, trade routes, and monastic economics. Here I discuss the relationship between Buddhism and the economy. Buddhism is not only a religion but also the first truly pan-Asiatic religion, spreading across South, Southeast, and East Asia more than 2500 years ago. While most people see Buddhism as mainly spiritual, its teachings and institutions also shaped economics in very real way. By combining moral principles like right, livelihood, and non-attachment with practical business activities, Buddhism became a force that influenced trade, agriculture, finance, and even modern economic models. In this presentation, I will show you how Buddhism universality allowed it to adapt to different economic systems while keeping a balance between material life and spiritual goals. Now I am talking about 5 major points related to the Buddhist economy. Point number 1: Buddhism and the Silk Road. Silk Road and antiquated system of trade routes that connected China, India, Central Asia and other countries where Buddhism had a significant impact on economic activity. Buddhism flourished along the Silk Road because monasteries were constructed as secure places for pilgrims and tradesmen, which promoted increased travel and trade. The Silk Road was not only a trade route for silk, spice, and precious metals but also a cultural bridge. Here, monasteries encouraged more travel and trade, while also helping spread Buddhist teachings. In Southeast Asia, the construction of temples and stupas required workers, materials, and silk, which boosted local economies and spread South Asian art styles. Moreover, traders also funded religious buildings as a way to show both wealth and piety. So Buddhism did not just spread spiritually along the Silk Road, it also became deeply connected with trade and economic growth. Point number 2: Monasteries and the economy of merit. At the heart of Buddhism's economic system was what we call the economy of merit. People donate food, money, or property to monks in exchange for spiritual reward like merit, protections, or a better rebirth. These donations allowed monasteries to survive but also gave them resources to buy land, build temples, and even run lending business. For example, in China, temples ran lending institutions that offered loans to farmers, while in Japan, temples formed mutual finance groups known as Mujinko. This system not only strengthened monasteries but also promoted trust, education, and social welfare in local communities. This shows that Buddhism spiritual values could work hard in hand with economic activity. Point number 3: Contributions to agriculture and local economics. Buddhism also influenced agriculture and local economies. Monasteries often managed farms and received land donations, and they promoted cooperative ways of farming. In Nepal, Buddhist-inspired agriculture cooperatives helped farmers share resources like seeds and fertilizers, making food production more secure. Buddhist values such as ahimsa means non-violence, sustainability, and cooperation encourage people to work together instead of competing. In Sri Lanka and other religion communities, farming projects linked people more closely to their food while reducing inequality. These examples show how Buddhist teachings could guide agriculture in ethical, sustainable, and economically productive ways. Point number 4, moral frameworks and contemporary adaptations. Moving to the modern world, Buddhism has continued to adapt while staying true to the moral framework. Historically, monasteries provided lending, mutual aid, and philanthropy. Today, in countries like Sri Lanka and South Korea, temples run meditation centers, coffee shops, and social enterprises. These ventures generate income but still follow Buddhist values of compassion and moderation. Globalization has also opened new opportunities such as meditation, tourism, and spiritual products. At the same time, Buddhist texts like the Shigalobhoda Sutta continue to offer moral guidance on wealth management. This shows that Buddhism remains relevant by combining spirituality with economic innovation. Point number 5, influence of other religions. It's also important to note that Buddhism economy was shaped by contact with other religions. From Hinduism and Jainism, Buddhism borrowed the ideas of dana, or that means giving, and punya, that means merit. In China and Japan, Confucian, Taoist, and Shinto traditions influenced temple management and community support system. In Islamic societies, Buddhist institutions drew inspiration from waqf like endowment and practice like zakat and sadaqah. Even Christian traditions such as running schools, hospitals, and social business influenced how Buddhist organizations operate in modern times. So while Buddhism kept its own logic of merit, it adapted to local religions and cultural practices, making it flexible and successful across Asia. To, recapitu- to recapitulate, Buddhism has had a lasting economic impact because it blends spiritual values with real world needs. From the Silk Road trade routes to farming cooperative in Nepal and modern social enterprise in South Korea, Buddhism has always linked morality with economics. Systems like the economy of merit, monastic leading, agriculture cooperative, and globalization based business show how flexible yet stable the religion has been. By promoting compassion, sustainability, and ethical wealth management, Buddhism continues to guide both individuals and societies. Its ability to balance spiritual goals with material concerns is what makes Buddhism not only a religion but also an enduring economic force in Asia. This is from my side. Thank you for your patience, sir. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Kripa Bormon. This is part 2 of our poster presentation, and my topic is Buddhism influence on art, architecture, and literature. The spread of Buddhism across Asia was not only about religion, it was also a cultural and artistic movement that deeply shaped societies. Buddhism kept its main ideas like compassion and enlightenment, but it also adapted to local tradition through literature, stories, temples, and art. In this part, I will show five main aspects of how Buddhism influenced Asian culture. Number one, Buddhist inspired great temples. Borobudur Temple, Java. It was built as a three-dimensional mandala combining Buddhist cosmology with Japanese culture. It worked as a pilgrimage site uniting people from different communities in Southeast Asia. This shows that Buddhist art was not only about religion, but also about identity, unity, and cross cultural communication. Number two, Buddhist caves, China. The Dongwang and Yangang caves were filled with paintings and sculptures that blended Chinese burial customs with Buddhist teachings. They became memorial shrines and also cross-cultural meeting points along the Silk Road where Indian, Chinese, and Central Asian styles came together. This made Buddhism more approachable for local people and turned art into a tool of connection and remembrance. Number three, Jakarta tales and visual storytelling. Stories were key to spreading Buddhism. Murals, sculpture, and Jataka tales taught moral lesson through pictures that everyone could understand, even those who could not read. This story, often sponsored by kings and elites, which gave Buddhist temples an authority in society. So, storytelling in art not only taught values but also strengthened Buddhist institutions and connected communities under shared moral guidance. Number four, Buddhist literature. Buddhist literature was equally important. The Pali Canon and Mahayana Sutras showed the diversity of Buddhist thought. When Buddhism reached China, the sutras had to be translated into Chinese, which required huge cultural adjustment. Later, Buddhist texts were written in local languages, not just Sanskrit or Pali. This made teachings available to ordinary people. So, Buddhist literature shaped not only religion but also literature, theater, and philosophy across Asia. Number five, socio-political role of art. Finally, Buddhist art and architecture also had political meaning. Kings and patrons built stupas, temples, and Buddha statues to gain merit and to show their authority. By sponsoring art and architecture, rulers gained legitimacy and promote unity among their people. This shows that Buddhist symbols like stup and or Buddha image were both spiritual tools and political instruments, helping Buddhism spread while keeping its core identity. In conclusion, I would like to say that Buddhism's art, architecture, and literature were more than just religious expressions. They become bridge between cultures, tools for rulers, and guides for everyday life. By adapting to local customs while keeping its core values, Buddhism created a shared cultural language across Asia that was both spiritual and political. This is how Buddhism became not only a religion but also a powerful cultural force that united Asia. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Shatisha from Group 15. So, today I'm going to talk about our topic Buddhism and the culture of Asia's cultural significance and the exchanges of the adaptation in Asian societies. So, Buddhism was founded by the Siddhartha Gautama in India in the 5th century and it became the first religion to spread widely across Asia. By the 1st century, it had reached China, Japan, Korea, and the Southeast Asia. Its spread was supported by trade routes like the Silk Road and the rulers such as Emperor Ashoka. As the first religion to spread widely across the continent, Buddhism did not just travel. It adapted, blended with local cultures, and left a lasting impact on art, festivals, values, literature, and language. What makes Buddhism so fascinating is not just teaching. It's about teaching, but how it was able to cross the cultural and the geographical barriers. It blended with local traditions, reshaped societies, and influenced art, literature, and even languages. So, today I'll highlight some main ways or main parts how Buddhism connected and transformed Asian cultures. Firstly, the syncretic fusion with local tradition. Syncretic fusion is one of the strongest impact of Buddhism, which has the ability to mix with the local traditions. Buddhism's magic lies in its syncretic fusion, blending with local beliefs to create harmony. For example, in Japan, Buddhism blended with Shinto beliefs. Buddhist deities were even linked to Shinto gods, and this led to the creation of string temple complexes, where the both religions were practiced together. In Thailand, Buddhism took in elements of local animism, such as giving offerings to spirits called Phai. These practices were combined with Buddhist rituals, making the religion more relatable to the people. Although there were challenges like resistance from Shinto priests, the blending of traditions made Buddhism adaptable and ensured its health, and the survival across many cultures. This was a smart strategy that helped the Buddhism thrive by connecting with existing values without erasing local identities. It enriched Asian's culture landscape, providing the religious adaptability. Secondly, the emergence of the new festivals and the daily habits. Buddhism also shaped the cultural life through festivals. Buddhism sparked new festivals that wove ethics into daily life. By the 19th century, Vishak in Southeast Asia, like in Sri Lanka and Thailand, celebrated the Buddha's birth. Enlightenment and passing with alms giving and the temple ceremonies promoting communal merit. In Japan, oven drawn from the Ulamvana Sutra blended ancestral reverence with Shinto customs like family altar offerings, strengthening ties in line with Confucian values. These festivals turned Buddhist teachings into everyday habits and strengthened community ties. However, in modern times, some of these festivals have become more commercialized, raising concerns about losing their original spiritual meaning. Now, I'll talk about the influence on values, arts, and language. It's a core concept that reshaped their ethics and their family lives. They also inspired in the art and the literature, and also about the spreading through the monastic networks and the enriched languages and the religious ties. Now, I will talk about them part by part. So, Buddhist principles like karma, reincarnation, and the meditation reshaped social values. Buddhist also influences the core concept on social values. In India, karma challenged the caste system by focusing on personal actions rather than birth status. This gave lower castes a stronger sense of dignity. In China, Chang Buddhism emphasized meditation and mindfulness, which influenced Confucian family values by encouraging self reflection and inner discipline. Of course, not everyone accepted these changes, but the Confucian leaders, for instance, criticized Buddhism and the Buddhist monks for leaving behind family duties. Still, Buddhism's ethical focus gave societies a new perspective on mortality and the personal responsibility. Now I'll talk about the impact on the art and the literature. Buddhism also impact a great impact on the literature and the art. They left a deep mark on Asian art and storytelling. In Tibet, colorful mandalas were created as spiritual maps of the universe. Across the Southeast Asia, Jataka tales stories of the Buddha's previous lives became popular folk stories. One striking example of cultural blending is the Greco-Buddhist art of Gandhara, where Greek and Indian artistic styles are combined. In literature, Buddhist sutras influenced classics like Journey to the West in China, which mixed myth with Buddhist values. These works spread Buddhist ideas, allow their local styles to shine, and creating a shared cultural conversation throughout across the Asia. Finally, the linguistic adaptation and the monastic networks of Buddhism. Buddhism influenced the language and the knowledge exchange. Texts like the Lotus Sutra were translated into Chinese, bringing Sanskrit words such as dharma and nirvana into new languages. Monasteries along the Silk Road were not just spiritual centers, they are also schools and hubs of trade, where monks exchanged ideas in science, medicine, and philosophy. This created a network that connected regions intellectually and also economically, making Buddhism is a unifying force. So, to sum up with, Buddhism was not only a religion but also a cultural bridge across the Asia. Through blending with local traditions, inspiring festivals, reshaping values, influencing art and literature, and creating networks of language and knowledge. Buddhism promoted both unity and diversity. Its legacy is that it could adapt to different cultures while keeping its core values intact. So, even today, we can see how Buddhism continues to inspire communities in Asia and beyond. Thank you so much. This is from me.
Hello everyone, my name is Amrita Roy, and today I'm going to talk about the religious significance of Buddhism becoming the first pan-Asiatic religion. Unlike traditions that spread through conquest, Buddhism spread through respect, adoption, and its ability to blend with the local beliefs while keeping its core teaching intact. So let's start talking about the Buddhism's pan-Asian reach. Buddhism originated in India in the 5th century BCE with the teaching of Gautam Buddha. By the 3rd century BCE, King Ashok embraced Buddhism and sent missionaries into April, and even gifting a Bodhi tree sapling to Sri Lanka. This step played an important role in establishing Buddhism in Sri Lanka, as it not only established a connection between these two countries, but also showed the openness of Buddhism to adapt locals of other religious beliefs into their practices. Buddhism reached in China in the 1st century CE, Korea in the 4th century CE, and Japan in the 552 CE. By the 7th century CE, it spread into Southeast Asia, blending with the Hindu customs, and in Tibet, it merged with the indigenous Bon religion. This broad timeline shows how Buddhism crossed borders and became a shared spiritual path across the Asia. Now let's talk about the syncretism with local beliefs. What made Buddhism so successful across Asia was its willingness to adapt instead of forcing the change. In South Asia, it interacted with the Hindu traditions. Instead of rejecting the Hindu gods or their beliefs, Mahayana Buddhism incorporated similar devotional practices and the ideas of compassion, which made it easier for the ordinary people to participate. In China, Buddhism encountered Taoism and Confucianism. To be understood by the Chinese, Buddhist monks use Taoist language. For example, they describe the Buddhist word path as the Chinese word Dao. Over time, Buddhist figures were reshaped in Chinese ways. Like the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was transformed into Guan, who is a compassionate goddess who became one of the most beloved deities in China. In 7th century in Korea, Buddhism mixed with the Shamanism and the Confucian ideas. Shamanism focused on spirits and nature, while the Confucianism valued order and harmony. A monk named Wishan taught that within one there is all, and within many there is one. This means that all beliefs are interconnected. This made Buddhism feel familiar and natural to the Korean people. In Japan, from the 6th century onward, Buddhism was practiced alongside with the Shinto religion, which was the native religion that focused on kami or natural spirits. Rather than competing, they were fused in rituals and shrines. Some temples also honored Buddhism figures and Shinto kami side by side, and this created Shindogusto Shugo, or the combination of kami worship with the Buddhist practice. So instead of replacing the local beliefs, Buddhism respected and integrated them. This openness made it far easier for the communities across Asia to accept them and turning it into a shared spiritual tradition rather than a foreign import. So let's talk about the creation of new sects. The blending with local cultures didn't just spread the Buddhism, but also it created entirely new sects that reflected the local values and practices. For example, the Mahayana Buddhism in South Asia. It opened the door for broader participation. Unlike earlier tradition focused mainly on the monks, Mahayana emphasized compassion and the bodhisattva ideal, which allows common people to feel included in the spiritual journey. In the 7th century Korea, the HUM school emphasized interconnectedness. Monks like Vishan taught that within one there is all, and within many there is one. It is a philosophy that tied Buddhist meditation to Korean, shamanistic, and Confucian beliefs, making it resonate deeply with the society. By the 9th century in Japan, Shingon Buddhism emerged, and this introduced tantric rituals, mantras, and mandalas while blending with Shinto kami worship. Finally, in the 12th to 13th centuries, Zen Buddhism developed. Um, Zen Buddhism developed in Japan from Chinese Chan. It emphasized meditation and direct experience over scriptures, influencing not only the religion but also art, tea ceremonies, and hallmarks of Japan culture. Lastly, let's talk about the promotion of tolerance and unity. By respecting the local customs, Buddhism became a religion of tolerance. In Sri Lanka, stupas stood alongside with the Hindu temples. In China, Buddhist texts were translated into Taoism ideas. And in Japan, Shinto kami and Buddhist deities were honored together. This openness allowed Buddhism to act as a unifying spiritual force, bringing together people from India, China, Japan, Southeast Asia under a shared principle of compassion and enlightenment. To conclude, Buddhism became the first pan-Asiatic religion not only through force but also through adoption. From the 5th century to eh, um, 13th century, it spread it via monks, kings, and trade routes. It blended with Hinduism, Taoism, Shamanism, and Confucianism and Shinto religion, giving birth to new sects and promoting tolerance across the borders. And that is why Buddhism remains a symbol of Asia's cultural and spiritual unity. So that is all from me. Thank you.